So, I'm here with Andy Carruthers from Findex, who is joining us today to talk about business survival. And I suppose we want to talk more about survival. We want to talk about strategies and plans to absolutely thrive coming out the end of this lockdown. And so, Andy, you've got some really valuable information to share when it comes to business cash flow and finances. Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about what you do at Findex and then launch into cash flow.
Sure. All right. Well, thanks for having me on, Brent. And so I'm a business advisor at Findex, and Findex looks after thousands of small and medium-sized businesses, across New Zealand and Australia. And so, every day I'm working with business owners to help them in their businesses, helping them solve financial, people, and technology problems. And so, over the last couple of weeks, working with our clients, we've been, I guess, over the first time, everybody was dealing with the shock of what's going on, and just over the last week, we're starting to see that change a little bit, and people are going, okay, so what do I need to do here to be able to survive this and be able to move forward, so that post lockdown we've actually got a business there that's going to work. And one of the crucial things that we're seeing a lot of is that clients just need to know what that cash flow position is going to look like over the next month, over the next 3 months, over the next 6 months, so that they know whether they have the resources to be able to deal with the challenge that we've got, that we're facing at the moment. And there are some big factors in there. Having to close your door for 4 weeks or for longer. What's going to be the impact of post the lockdown? What's that going to do to your sales? Many of our clients have applied for and have got the wage subsidy, which is providing a little bit of a buffer there. But it's really important to know how that's going to look, how that's really going to play out. If you're paying 80% of wages, or if you're paying 100% of wages, the subsidy for many businesses is not going to go all the way there.
Are you finding? I know from some of my conversations, if you're a business and you're paying, kind of near minimum wage, and you can't deploy your staff, it's probably going to be quite helpful for those business owners to get them through. But if you're a business and you're paying people, much more, and you can't trade during this period, it's not providing too much relief at all, really. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. There are lots of clients where it makes where it is quite helpful, and then there's quite a few where it really just doesn't make much of a dent at all. And obviously there are businesses out there that are thriving, and that are they're actually benefiting from what's going on, and some businesses who are not affected, but there's a lot that are. Yeah.
So what are your tips when it comes to cash flow at a time like this?
Okay, so one, make sure that you're doing a cash flow update. Whether you're doing that yourself or whether you're getting somebody to help you with it. If you're doing it yourself, there's some great tools out there to be able to do it yourself. Many of our clients are using Xero and other tools. There are add-ons to be able to do cash flow forecasts. A really good one is Spotlight Forecasts. you can go and sign up for that and go and create a forecast. And the key thing there is make sure that you put in some really conservative forecasts, some really conservative assumptions around, how much of a drop in income you're likely to see going forward in the business. What is it going to look like with that wage subsidy coming in, and what's going to happen with customers paying you slowly and increased bad debts over the next little while. And then from there, you start to develop a picture, and what you need to then do is decide how much money you're willing to invest in keeping your business going in its current format. Make sure that you draw a line in the sand and say, this is how much you're willing to invest here. And, absolutely crucial that you know what your personal financial balance sheet position looks like, so that you can make that decision.
I think that's a really important point, is making those decisions now around how much money you're willing to put in and where your lines are, because it's too easy to get the decision wrong when you're in the moment, and that's certainly what I see is with my background, is people just keep shoveling cash in until they've got nothing left, and they really lose the benefit of the corporate shield that they had, and so making those decisions now when there's not as much emotion tied to the decision is going to be really useful.
Yeah, and it's so hard. We're responsible for lots of people. There's lots of suppliers, lots of customers and team members that we're responsible for. And, as harsh as it sounds, it is so important to look after the most important people in your life first. And that is, that's you and your family. If you don't look after those people first, you don't have an employer looking after you. You're it. So, I think that's really important that people take that responsibility really seriously. It's very easy for the fear to take over and for people not to take action and not to get support to manage this properly.
Yeah totally.
So the one thing that we'll post in the comments afterwards, there's a really good article on the sorted.org.nz website about about 7 things to do right now around your personal finances. And I'd really encourage people to go and read that, and get that forecast done, get that line in the sand drawn, so you know where you stand.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a few of the messages that I've been putting out there around expenses is we really need to reduce our expenses where we can, and there are a few really quick wins. Commercial leases, that accounts for a large portion of expenses for most businesses, and there's a lot that can be done to reduce rent. And I know people that are getting 0 rent during lockdown. I know people that are getting 50% rent during lockdown. But for most businesses, paying 100% right now is just not ideal, and it's going to result in further problems down the track. So, having those robust conversations with your landlords as early as possible. They should have already happened, but if they haven't happened, it's time to pick up the phone. And us Kiwis are really bad when it comes to putting our head in the sand. So picking up the phone and having a hard conversation is actually really hard. But I encourage everyone to do that, and to get a arrangement in place with the landlord that is something that everyone can live with. And then employees, and this is the tough one, because as business owners, we're not all big bad wolves. We don't go to work every day looking to screw our staff, but as soon as employers are talking about laying off, that's the brush that they're painted with. And the brutal reality right now is there are businesses out there that if they don't make redundancies, if they don't make cuts, or just reduction in how much is being paid, they're not going to survive.
Yep.
And my view is, as business owners, we have a duty and an obligation and a responsibility to survive and come out the other side to be employers. And that just means hibernating now for many, so they can come out the other side and do that. And so, again, hard conversations, and those are needed relatively early for some businesses. The other one is IRD. Right now it's very hard to get a hold of the IRD. They're one of the few creditors in the country that aren't picking up their phones. But there are deals to be cut with the IRD, and the government has given them a very clear steer on how they should be handling people who are affected by COVID and that have arrears. And so it's very, very possible to get on payment plans, to get penalties and interest written off. And again, these conversations need to be happening now. Proposals need to be going out.
Yeah. So, one thing that we're encouraging, clients to do, and seeing a lot of this happen, over the last few years with the improvements around My IR, you can now enter into an installment arrangement, through My IR, directly yourself. You don't need to get on the telephone. You don't need to, get them. You don't need to wait in the queue. You can go and do that. And those limits around those installment arrangements have been cut drastically. So, it's possible now to utilise that, and it's really important that people keep meeting their obligations around filing, because if you don't do that, it's not gonna work well. But if you file and then get in communication through your My IR, then you're proactively dealing with it, and then as you've got bigger things to deal with, and as we can get hold of people on the phone, then deal with that at that time.
Yeah, and in addition, I totally endorse that. Keep filing your returns, and the other one I would add is stay current. So if you're incurring obligations through this lockdown period, you should be paying those. And if you can, I think that's going to be important. I think the IRD will want people to be at least current, and they can deal with the legacy on an arrangement. The other thing is creditors, and right now, if you can't pay creditors, again, it's not a great time to be putting your head in the sand. People actually understand this is hard for us all, and upfront, robust conversations are going to be needed. And at the end of the day, if you've got no cash flow, I think most creditors are going to understand your situation and give you an arrangement. And so, if it's deferred payment or let's get you on a monthly payment, those are all conversations that need to be happening now as well.
Yeah.
Because if you can spread out some payments, if that's going to help you survive, then that's a key area to focus on. Yeah.
One thing we were talking about earlier on, Brent, just around what's going to happen to some of your payment days and timing and bad debts. I think that's one thing that people really need to think about. And again, going back to their cash flow forecast, if you want to bring up that example, just to talk through that quickly. So, here's an example of a cash flow that was we were doing for a client the other day, and it's a little small on screen, but what this cash flow shows is that after making these assumptions, there was going to be, end of September, there was going to be cash flow of $130,000 in this particular business. When we allowed for customers slowing down their payments, so meaning more customers were going to pay at 60 days and at 90 days, the result of that was that 130,000 turned into minus 157,000. So, just like, that's huge.
It's massive.
And the only difference there is that customers are paying slower.
Yeah.
So, for a lot of businesses, they're going, okay, well, we've got a wage subsidy. We're able to trim these costs and these costs, and that kind of feels like it might be okay. It is more complicated than that. And it's more complicated than that for many, and it's really important to make sure that you're having a look at that, because everybody knows the worst thing in the world is to run out of cash. That's
cash is king, right?
Absolutely. And you were talking before about negotiating with suppliers. Make a list of all of your suppliers, from the ones you spend the most with to the ones you spend the least with, and get on the phone and ask for help. Some of those businesses will be doing just fine and will have strong balance sheets and will be able to give you some support if you ask. If you don't ask, you won't get help.
Yeah, that's right. Ask and you shall receive. And I mean, the reality is, in lockdown, there's very little that creditors can do right now to enforce their position anyway. So it's, everyone has to be a little bit pragmatic. And look, with my insolvency and litigator hat on, I would also add to that list, add another column, and add in a little asterisk to each one that you have a personal guarantee on. And if you have to choose, those would be the ones that I would be choosing, because if it all goes pear-shaped, and again, it's hope for the best but prepare for the worst. If this does end in a liquidation, then you don't want the PGs, and so unfortunately, that's the kind of brutal reality as well. Is people with PGs tend to get paid before people without. This is a question here for you, Andy.
I do think quite a few businesses will take the loan scheme. I think that in order to get an approval from the bank, I think you're going to have to go through the same process as you normally would, and I think it's really important that anybody applying through the scheme treats it in the same way they normally would to going and borrowing money. Make sure you do your homework, make sure you're clear about why you're borrowing the money and why it's worthwhile you doing it for your business. There's going to be lots of people who are going to run off to the bank and are not going to be well prepared, and the bank is just going to push it back to them and say, look, come back when you're ready and when you've got your proposal lined up.
Yeah, and I think it has to be paid back in 3 years, if I'm not
Yeah.
wrong. And
Yeah.
so you also need to think about how you're gonna pay that back, because if it's just getting paid back through the equity in your mortgage, it's not really a great loan.
No, and that's that's the key thing with your application. The bank's going to assess it based on your ability to be able to pay it back in 3 years.
Yeah.
So it's got to generate a really good return for you to go and borrow that money. But there are lots of businesses that that this is going to be a really important assistance for them to get through this, and it will make financial sense for many businesses to do that. It's really important.
Sorry, you go.
It's really important before borrowing any money that you spend the time to make sure that this is a good decision to make.
Yeah, I mean it's a pretty good regime for banks too. I mean, if you've got a good customer or a decent customer, and you've got some government backing on how it's going to be repaid, I mean, it's certainly lowered the risk significantly.
Oh, absolutely. And I think I think it's great what is being offered inside of that scheme, but also outside of that scheme as well. There's I think everybody's coming to the party to try and lessen the impact. And I think what we've got to do is we've got to be as proactive as possible to utilize all of those opportunities to support our businesses through this time.
Yeah, totally. A couple of other questions. I think we mostly covered that. So it's going to be, the starting point is business as usual. It is file your returns, pay your tax. But there's also a very clear steer here for businesses that are affected by COVID-19. I think we can expect the IRD to take a fairly sympathetic approach to payment proposals and applications to write off interest. And Tim, just referring back to the loans, is there going to be collateral required? I mean, I haven't seen any of our clients actually applying for loans, but I mean, I would expect the banks are going to take their usual position on security. Yep. They're going to want a GSA over everything, hook into your house if you have one, and they'll take maximum security that they can get.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. So, Andy, you've got a COVID response plan that Findex has. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So through the business partner network, we've got a COVID response plan to help business owners plan over the coming lockdown period, and then coming out of lockdown. What are the key things that they need to be paying attention to, so that the business can thrive when it gets the opportunity. So that's there's been some government funding put up to fund some of that work, and we'll put a link in about that that plan offering at the end, so people can in the first instance go and talk to their regional funding authority, whoever that is in your particular area. It's different in different parts of the country, and you can request some funding towards some support around that.
Perfect. And look, I'm going to drop a link in the comments below as well to the Business Hibernation book that we've put out. It just covers off some of the stuff we've talked about today, minus the cash flow aspects of what you've added, Andy. Yep. And look, for anyone that's wanting some assistance, we offer a free 30-minute legal consult, and look, very happy to talk through the issues.
Awesome.
Thank you for your time. I'm sure people found this valuable.
Cool.
Cheers.
See you, mate.